Hi, today is Tuesday, January 12th, 2022. Yesterday we learned expressions embryos, blob, gash, repair pathogen, spread mucus around, mazes, zip themselves back into life, repercussion, ramification. The small xenobots are fascinating in their own rights. At all, embryo, blob, gash, repair pathogens, spread mucus around, mazes, zip themselves back into life, repercussion. The small xenobots are fascinating in their own rights at all. So that was what I learned from my daily English reading yesterday. And today we are going to read some science about biology, life science about wolves. I still believe that there is a creator in the universe, not necessarily the God in the Bible. I think the Bible has good stories in it, some lessons to be learned, but many of them are still not up to par with the science when you. So that's just forget about the Bible. Let's dive into what the story should say about my daily English reading. This is purely academic effort to learn English and honing on my pronunciation. I live in Korea, so not many foreigners that I can communicate with in English. I'm still married, so I cannot have a girlfriend, English girlfriend, English speaking girlfriend. Not yet. Science. Plants and animals. The legendary dire wolf may not have been a wolf at all. North America's top dog traveled a lonely evolutionary path. It traveled a lonely evolutionary path. 13th January 2021. Dire wolves red fight off gray wolves for dibs on a bison kill in this artist's rendition. Bison kill. What is dibs? Wolves for dibs. Maybe carcass? Roadkill? Dibs. One of North America's most famous ancient predators and a favorite of Game of Thrones fans emerged as mysteriously as it disappeared. Dire wolves, which died out with mammoths and saber-toothed cats at the end of the large ice age, were long thought to be close cousins of gray wolves. Now, their first analysis of dire wolf DNA finds they instead traveled a lonely evolutionary path. They are so different from other wolves, coyotes, and dogs that they don't belong in the genus that includes these animals. Instead, researchers argue they need an entirely new scientific classification. Genus. It's a fascinating study that reveals just how distinct dire wolves were, says Robert Dundas. Dundas? That's interesting name. Interesting pronunciation. Dundas, a vertebrate paleontologist, an expert. The paleontologist is the science researcher who studies animals' bones, an expert that died petrified, an expert on the animals at California State University, Fresno, who was not involved with the work. Archaeologists know dire wolves lived in North America from about 250,000 to 13,000 years ago. They were about 20% bigger than today's gray wolves. The size of their skeletons often gives them away. Yeah, they know the size from the size of the bones. Gives them away and give something away, like reveal. And like other wolves, they probably traveled in packs, hunting down bison, ancient horses, and perhaps even small mammals and mastodons. Many followed their prey into the sticky asphalt of what are now Los Angeles La Brea tar pits, where they were trapped for the ages. Hundreds of direwolf skulls line the walls at the California Museum. So their prey stuck in the asphalt in California, and they found the direwolf's bones there, obviously, where they were trapped for the ages. But that's where most knowledge stops, because the skeletons of dire wolves are similar to those of gray wolves. The two animals were considered closely related. Scientists have long classified dire wolves as Canis dirus, putting them in the same genus as gray wolves, coyotes, and dogs. But the one thing that could have sealed the deal, open the letter, close the letter, seal the deal, done that. It's a seal the deal. Signed, sealed, and sent. Direwolf DNA had been broken down by the tar of the pits. In the new study, researchers scoured North America trying to extract genetic samples from dozens of direwolf remains at universities and museums. They recovered about 1/4 of the nuclear genome and the full mitochondrial DNA across 5 individuals, ranging in age from about 13,000 to more than 50,000 years old. The genetic material revealed a new evolutionary family tree. And a surprise, direwolves occupy their own lineage, separate from those that gave rise to African jackals, gray wolves, coyotes, and dogs by nearly 6 million years. The team reports today in Nature. Gave rise to African jackals, gray wolves, coyotes, and dogs. Yeah, that's good expression. Gave rise to, okay, give them away. Even though they look like wolves, direwolves actually have nothing to do with wolves, just like humans and apes, says Angela Perry, a zoo archaeologist at Durham University and one of the study's lead authors. Good work. Perry and her colleagues also recovered proteins from the collagen of a lab-bred direwolf, which supported the split between the species. The mounting evidence, that's another expression, the increasing mounting evidence, okay? Mounting evidence has convinced the team to recommend taking direwolves out of the Canis genus entirely and putting them elsewhere in the larger canid family, which in addition to wolves and coyotes includes foxes, jackals, and other dog-like carnivores. Direwolves would become Anocyan dirus, a designation proposed in 1918, but that scientists large disregarded. Okay, their suggested designation, another good expression. Okay, designation proposed in 1918. The Anocyan genus was left in the historical dustbin, but it can be resurrected, says Xiaoming Wang, a vertebrate paleontologist and expert on ancient canids at the National Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. Based on the genetic data this team presents, I would support that reclassification. That could also mean a reimaging of what dire wolves looked like. Artists and the Game of Thrones creators have often depicted the predators as large timber wolves, bulky, gray, and ferocious. But Perry says living in the warmer latitudes of North America may have given them traits more common to canids and other animals in these climates, such as red fur, a bush tail, and more rounded ears. As such, she says, direwolves may have resembled a giant reddish coyote. Genetic analysis further revealed the predators probably evolved in the Americas, where they were the only wolf-like species for hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of years, or when gray wolves and coyotes arrived from Eurasia, likely about 20,000 years ago. Dire wolves were apparently unable to breed with them, as the researchers found no traces of genetic mixing. That's unusual, Perry says, as even species as diverse as dogs and coyotes can produce offspring. Okay? Produce offspring. Yeah, they can have sex, they can fuck each other and produce offspring. But that's not the case with these dire wolves. This further suggests, she says, that dire wolves were a very different animal than these other creatures. Still, Wang notes the team was unable to get complete genomes from any of its specimens. That could mean there are missing genetic signatures, which could indicate that dire wolves did breed with these other animals and could further help classify the species. We are gaining lots of new insight into the relationship between dire wolves and other canids, he says. But there are still open questions. Open questions. Not closed questions. Open questions. Open questions. As to why the wolves disappeared, scientists only know that they vanished along with other big Ice Age creatures. Perry suspects climate change may have killed off the large prey dire wolves depended on, and that gray wolves and coyotes survived because they could stalk small animals. Human hunting of dire wolf prey may have also played a role, as it's likely the wolves occupied North America with early North Americans for thousands of years. These animals were not mythological beasts, Perry says. They lived among us. Not that long ago, the world was full of creatures we will never see again. DOI 10th. That's like a classification portmanteau, DOI, dib, relevant text. About the author, David Graham. Author David is the online news editor of Science. Thanks, David, for my daily English reading feed. I really appreciate your article. Very succinct, brief, in depth, but succinct. Thanks for the article one more time. But before I close today's daily English reading, I'd like to look up the word dib. Okay, dib, dibbing, dibs. Computer teacher, device independent bitmap. English dictionary, dip, fish by causing the bait to bob slightly underwater. Like bob. Falls down, goes up and down. Up and down. Dip. What? Is that it? That's dip. Child's game played with the dip bones, one of the small bones in the knee joints of sheep, uniting the bones above and below the joints. Dib. So a dib is joint bone? You sure? Thanks for listening.